This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Welcome to this episode of Forge Daily. I'm your host, Mackenzie Barwell. Today's date is May 21st, 2024. Flipping the switch, as Coach Bobby would say. Yesterday, Milty and I discussed Saturday's matchup against Vancouver, but today I'm excited because I am talking about the second leg of the quarterfinal for the Canadian Championship against CF Montreal with one of my friends who also happens to be one of Canada Soccer's best play-by-play commentators, Matt Cullen. He and I are going to get into what we've seen from either side this far into the 2024 season, and particularly on his end, where Montreal is at right now, because he called that TFC game just a few days ago where CF Montreal fell 5-1. So a conversation coming up, but first, I wanted to share some interviews I did with players yesterday after practice in preparation for today's interview. I had a chance to talk to Dom Samuel and, of course, Dav Choineire ahead of this Montreal match, and they shared what they liked about that first round, how they plan to adjust, if at all, and what they are expecting from this Montreal side the second time around.
I think if we just ball like we have been, guys like Daniel have come in and made a huge impact. Guys like Benny have been performing Forges very, very well. Like I said, if we just ball and stick to our principles and our tactics, then we'll be fine. I know that this is going to be something that they really want to play for because obviously, their form hasn't been the greatest as of late. But again, they're top contenders in the Canadian Cup. Mm-hmm. And so they want to win that every year. And last year it didn't really go so well for them. So, and just for us, every time we play Montreal, we're so close, and it's just not there. So we're hoping to beat that cycle this year.
Yeah, now we shift to Montreal. It's a new competition. It's another challenge that we want to have success at. We're trying to make a run there, and it start with Montreal. I think we know the 1-1 result at home. We know we need to score a goal. We need to be offensive, and then if we get that goal, we need to be solid in the back and not concede. So it's going to be a fun challenge because we know how hard it is to play at the Montreal Stadium, Saputo Stadium. First of all, it's a grass, so that change. But every team know their stadium. They know the dimension. They know the field, and you're a bit more comfortable when you play at home. I think they're going to be They're going to be better on the ball. They're going to use their pitch better with the fans. From experience, I know they play better at home. They have a terrible record away usually, and they get all their points at home. So it's gonna be good.
Okay, thanks, Dad. Always good to get some player insight, and a special thank you to Dom and Dav for making the time after practice. But now let's hear from an expert with a different perspective, and welcome Matt Cullen to the show. Forge fans, alongside Matt Cullen. Matt, you're joining me from what looks like a very scenic setting. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Really excited for this Leg 2 quarterfinal match here. Should be a lot of fun.
I know, and I'm kind of shocked that we haven't had an opportunity or done this sooner, between you and I.
Well, I call a lot of soccer between multiple leagues, so anytime you need me, give me a call. I'm here.
Your knowledge is so widespread. It's ridiculous. Every single time I refresh your Instagram, it's like, what stadium is he at right now?
Well, it's been a fun ride between One Soccer, of course, doing some of their commentary, do some French work as well. So I want to be up front with all the Forge fans. I've called CF Montreal, I've called CS Saint Laurent, the Canadian Championship, do some MLS games as well. So doing all three leagues this year, Canadian Championship. This is my fourth year doing the Canadian Championship. So I really love this competition and have called Forge's last three games against Montreal. Of course, they've been close a couple times. So maybe it's fourth time's the charm this time.
Yeah, exactly. Unreal. And, to your point, they've played them a bunch of times and been very close. But yeah, no, you talk about commentating for a lot of the French teams. For the purpose of today's episode, that's perfect because we want some insight on enemy territory, if you will. So Looking at tomorrow's matchup, we'll get there very shortly. But first, can we just briefly go over what you saw in the first leg and what you made of that match?
I love that atmosphere. And it was 11 a.m. school day start. I love those games. It was so loud, over 14,000 kids. And honestly, I think it was a surprise for CF Montreal because they play in MLS stadiums where they have big crowds, but they don't play in the morning. And usually the pitch level isn't like that high. You know, there was a sharpness to those kids screaming. So I think that really gave Forge an extra boost, and really like they looked like the better team for most of the day. I mean, obviously the first half where they were deservedly up 1-0, and Laurent Courtois, CF Montreal's manager, had to make 4 changes at halftime, which was really not part of his plan. He said that after the games, like we were losing the pitch battle, we were losing on the scoreline. We needed to make a change, bringing in 4 MLS regulars just to try and salvage the draw. And really, there was that flurry of chances at the end where Montreal's keeper Sebastian Breza had to make, I think, 2 or 3 really good saves. Otherwise, it would have been Forge heading to Montreal with a lead. So I honestly think that, you know, Forge could have easily had a couple more goals in this game, but the way it stands right now, Montreal's got that just slim advantage by scoring an away goal. So Forge will have to get something. They'll have to get some sort of result, some sort of offensive production, defensively remain sound against this Montreal team that's really having a hard time right now, to be honest, in MLS play. They had a good start to the season, but the last month, 2 months has been a real struggle, especially defensively. So maybe a window of opportunity here for one of the Forge strikers to strike.
Totally. And I mean, that away goal rule makes it very interesting going into Wednesday. But you talked about Montreal having to make a couple substitutions at half, a plan that their head coach wasn't intending on doing. Do you think that they were shocked with not only the setting and environment with those screeching kids, but maybe the quality and pace of play of Forge?
Well, the team has known Forge for a while, so some of the players. Now, Laurent Courtois, it's his first time seeing Forge. He's the first-year MLS manager, so he hasn't been a part of these last competitions. And I think that athletes are creatures of habit, where they have their normal game day routines. And obviously when you have an 11 a.m. kickoff, both teams have to deal with this, but it's who's going to deal with it the best. And I think that Forge definitely had the upper hand there. Forge didn't play at the weekend. Just before that first leg, Montreal did. They had a tough loss in Nashville Saturday, came right to Hamilton to play this game. So they were tired. They were off a tough loss. And yeah, they looked just flat off the hop. They gave a couple of players some of their club debuts on the season, so players that are not really part of the lineup. So I know it's an opportunity for Montreal to use some of its depth players to see what they have. But obviously, once 45 minutes hit, they decided that they needed to bring in some of the bigger guns, and it worked out because Bryce Duke scored a really key goal for Montreal in the second half. But I think Montreal was lucky to get away with a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe if they had foreseen how that first 45 had gone, they might not have came out with the lineup that they did. Now, you mentioned it a second ago in terms of Montreal's form. Looking at the Forge side, they've tied Pacific and lost to Vancouver since then. Coach Bobby has been very clear in the press conferences that he hasn't been disappointed by any means in terms of how they've gone out and performed. Obviously not the results that they've wanted. But for Montreal, I don't know if the same can be said because they're not getting the results. But Matt, maybe you can provide some insight here. I also don't know if they're playing how they want to. I think I saw a stat that haven't won a game in the past 10 or 11 matchups.
Yeah, just one win in its last 11 in all competitions. So that's and they're coming off a really embarrassing defeat to Toronto FC on the weekend. Had a chance to be in the building for that one as well. And Montreal's defensive play was just really off pace in the first half. I think they gave up 3 goals within 19 minutes. And, that's the big matchup, right? That's the derby matchup. It's the battle of the 4-1, the Canadian Classique. And that's a game you don't want to lose. Montreal hadn't lost that game in a number of years, going back to 2019. I guess that's like 5 years without losing in Toronto. They got it handed to them this time around. So I'm sure Forge fans will want to, another Ontario team playing against Montreal. Maybe there's a chance to kind of shift some of that success over. But Yeah, Montreal in the past has been a better defensive team. Like Sirois last year, a former Canadian Premier League keeper with Valor. Now he's the starter in Montreal. He had 11 clean sheets last year. Like even though Montreal missed the playoffs, like they did well in games defensively to do a good job to kind of grind out these results, even though their top end talent really wasn't there. They have some new players this year, but this time it's their defensive record that just hasn't been very strong. Now, what they're trying to do a lot this year is try and play out of the back, and that's like, the short passes to try and create space up in the middle, up into the attack, and that just really hasn't worked out for them so far this year. They gave up a really bad goal in the 19th minute, made it 3-0, where it was just a careless giveaway, and again, you understand what they're trying to do. You understand that the opportunities up the pitch are going to perhaps open up for them, and the bet is that they're going to score more than they give up. Yes, they're going to give up a few like that, but it just hasn't worked out. I think Montreal has the most goals given up in the East, if not the league right now, after giving up 5. I think there were only 2 other MLS teams, Portland and San Jose, that have given up more goals than Montreal this year. So the fact they just gave up 5 is not helping their chances with that. So yeah, really, it's a team that's struggling defensively. So like I said, maybe a chance for a Benny Badibonga or a Kyle Becker or a David Choineire going back home to Montreal to finally score one. I know Choiniere scored in the first leg too against his hometown club, his former club. So lots of super interesting storylines here to follow.
Yeah, Dav potentially an opportunity to hand another one to his brother. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, no, I saw that goal that you're talking about, and interesting. I'm not completely familiar with the development of their style of play, but if that's what they're going with now, then they do have to commit to it, especially against a team like Forge, because Forge not unfamiliar with a build-up.
Yeah, this is. I think there's a lot of things that play within Forge's structure, and you mentioned like the last couple of matches they haven't had the wins. Like I think now 3 straight winless in all competitions. But I think that the way that Forge wants to play, like this fits in exactly what they want to do. Like they played well in the games. They've had shots, they've had chances, they've had possessions. And I mean, against the Vancouver game, you get an Olympical goal again. Like it's just, those Tim Hortons Field seems to be kind of the magnet for those this year.
What's up with that?
Maybe it's like the magnetic, maybe it's like a magnetic thing. The ball is just able to curl in so well. I remember Borges, that's the magic moment, right? In the CPL final in extra time, like never going to be hard to beat that one. But Vancouver got
planted the seed in 2019 for his first Olympico, and then something's just been in the air ever since, I think.
Yeah, it is. This time it went against Forge though, but you take one in the final over that any day. So
totally. Okay, well, as we talked about, the environment here was insane, and maybe there is something in the air for Forge at home, but now they're playing away at Stade Saputo, and I talked to Dav Choineire a little bit this morning after practicing. He mentioned that Montreal just plays better at home. They have a grass field like every other team. They know their field, they know their stadium. So what do you think, we'll go into that, and how different do you think they'll show up given that?
Yes, no doubt about it. Montreal traditionally has been a much better side at home. And Forge has actually had a double taste of that in the last couple of Canadian championships, losing 2-0 and 3-0. Those were winner-take-all games. And this is sort of like that as well with the 1-1 scoreline coming in. But so Forge has been on the wrong end of some tough defeats in Montreal, where Montreal just looks a lot more comfortable, a lot more organized. But I would caution Mackenzie, because Montreal has given up some tough home losses this year in front of their fans. They've recently lost to Columbus and Wilfred Nancy, their former coach, coming back. That game they were not really that competitive in. They did tie it on a penalty goal from Mathieu Choiniere. And previously it was a loss to Inter Miami. They've only had one home win this year. So that is a concern. The Montreal has a very passionate fan base. There's a lot of drama right around the team right now between the owner and their recently departed technical director, Olivier Renard, as well. So there's a lot of Mathieu Choiniere has a contract situation that is sort of hanging out in the open. So I want to say that there's not a lot of good vibes around the CF Montreal team right now. I don't think I'm offending or surprising anybody with that. They have one win in 11. They've given up a lot of goals. They haven't won a lot at home. There's some off-field issues they have to deal with. So the timing for Forge here might be just perfect to try and get a result in Montreal.
Well, no, you don't really have to describe it. It's just the stats speak for themselves. Maybe not so good vibes. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Looking at the Forge side, though, if you're CF Montreal, I know we briefly mentioned how Forge has been quite cohesive and organized this year, and a lot of the players have testified to that. But a lot of really great individual performers as well. You talk about Benny Badabenga, now Daniel Parra. These are new faces who really show out on their own as well as blend with the team. So maybe them or some other players, if you're CF Montreal, who have you got like one eye open for on the Forge side?
I mean, the way Tristan Borges has been playing this year, he is going to be really tough to stop. He is just a goal machine. It's great to see him that he's healthy again. If he's not scoring, he's setting up plays. He's a really electric player. Yeah, Batty Bonga set up Choiniere in the opening leg in the quarterfinal. He's a really talented player. Choiniere's got a cannon for a shot. So those three players, of course, are going to be great. But it's really great you mentioned what Daniel Parra's been able to do, a first-year player in the CPL. He has turned a lot of heads so far at what he can do at left back, and he is going to be a real handful for CF Montreal to play. That was very evident that Forge had a lot going on Parra's side of the pitch in a quarterfinal. Really like the play of Chris Kalongo this year as well, because those are some big shoes to step into. And Tristan Henry, who was a two-time keeper of the year, the Golden Glove winner in the CPL, there was some uncertainty for the young man. Yes, he got a taste of international football playing in the Champions Cup and CONCACAF. That was great, but and the CPL, he's really just carried over that good form, and he's given Forge a chance to win on most nights. Like, he's making very key saves. So I think if you have everything come together, I think we're going to have a real game on Wednesday.
I'm excited, Matt. Thank you so much for everything that you provided today. And thanks for, figuring out where to film this, when to shoot it. You're awesome.
Oh, hey, happy to help. And feel free to reach out anytime. It's a long season, so should be a lot of fun.
Go, eh? Perfect.
Yes.
That'll conclude today's episode. Another huge thank you to Matt for taking the time. I know his schedule isn't exactly flexible this time of year now that the soccer season is ramping up again. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. I suggest you do that on One Soccer tomorrow at 7:30 to watch your Forge FC take on CF Montreal. And Milty and I will be back to check in on the audio network on Thursday.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.
Okay, first things first, you have a lot of travel coming up. Not only to Montreal, but you're going to keep bomb pushing to Ottawa. So my question to you is, if you have to sit next to one teammate for the entirety of your travels, who is your draft pick?
Garvin.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
I just think we get along. We know our boundaries. We know when to leave each other alone. We've been roommates for a couple of years now, and we don't put our nose in each other's business. And then we talk when it's time to talk, and we both speak French. We're friends. It was just a good mix, a good chemistry.
I don't know. I like everybody on my team.
Come on.
I like everybody on my team. Who would I not sit next to? I can't answer that.
You like everybody on your team.
I do like everybody.
What do you
last trip I sat next to KJ. Great guy.